like to call order to this meeting of the Santa Barbara Unified School District's Board of Education for Tuesday, April 24th, 2018. And we will begin by rising to say the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Matsuoka.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Muy buenas tardes, buenas noches, bienvenidos. Tenemos los aparatos para escuchar la interpretación en español, si así lo desean. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, and we do have headsets available for the hearing impaired, actually behind us. So if anyone in the audience would like a headset, they're here. I will now move on to item C5, announcement of closed session action. And we had one item to report out on. We have a public employee appointment, and this new position has been added and filled. The motion was made by Ms. Parker and seconded by Mr. Ishmael Ulloa, and it was unanimous that the new Director of Secondary Education will be Dr. Ann Roundy Harter. And Mr. Matsuoka, I know, will be speaking to that on his report, which is next.
Great.
Mr. Matsuoka.
Thank you, Dr. Reed. So it's my pleasure to introduce to our district a new Director of Secondary Education. So Dr. Ann Roundy Harter comes to us from nearby county, Ventura County, where she spent her entire career, I believe 24 years. Taught high school at Buena High School. I suppose that's one of our competitors, right? She'll have to figure out new colors. But has been a high school teacher there, AP, middle school principal, elementary principal. So that's very great that you've had an all full K-12 experience. So we welcome you, and Ann, why don't you come up and introduce yourself to the board and your new school district.
I'm tall, I have to hold this thing up. Thank you so much. I wanted to say thank you to Carrie and Sean in particular, and to the board members, and to all 21 members of the interview panel. It was quite an experience, and I'm just so grateful I had the opportunity to meet so many people. This is a fantastic team. I really feel that Santa Barbara is collaborative, inclusive, and a district on the move, and that's exactly the energy that I want to be part of. And so I'm just so thrilled to be joining the team, and apparently I'm a little too excited because I heard that I already read the summer reading book. So hopefully I can help lead some of those discussions like we did in the interview as well. But I just couldn't be more proud and honored to join such a great team as Santa Barbara Unifieds, and bring my wisdom and expertise and share in those discussions together and learn together. So thank you so much. I really appreciate this opportunity.
Thank you. That's it.
All right, do we have any board comments? Anyone? No? All right, I just wanted to say that I had the opportunity to visit, as well as with Mr. Ishmael Ulloa, Paredes Ulloa, and Ms. Sims-Moten, the ELAC celebration last Thursday, and it was really an amazing experience. And I think I was inspired by all the speakers, but I was really inspired by the student speaker, and his name was Dennis Rosales, and he just gave a real poignant story about his experience coming from Mexico and coming here, and then actually, I think it was within a year, he was able to speak English and really, and also be reclassified. And so that was a really powerful story. That was a really amazing story. And to see the support in that room, and I was really thrilled to be there. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. Also, I've had the chance to visit quite a few of the academies and here in the district. The Apple Academy, the Entrepreneur Academy, and I'm going to be visiting also the Health Academy, and the VADA Academy with other board members. And so I just think it's really important for me. I'm learning more and more about what's going on in our different schools and the different programs, and I'm amazed at the programs that are being implemented. And so it's just, every day there's something new to learn, that's for sure. And in my role, it seems like I'm constantly learning something new and challenged by something new at the same time. But I want to say that the district and the programs that I've been able to experience and learn more about, I'm very proud for the work that we have here in our district. So I'll get off my little soapbox and move us forward to actually public comment. Public comments are non-agenda matters within the jurisdiction of the Board of Education, and we typically, I'd like to frame this, I feel I should do this more often, we give 3 minutes to each speaker, and we give a 30-second warning. Ms. Sims-Moten does very politely, but we really try to keep it succinct so we can get everyone involved to have an opportunity to speak. And if you are speaking in Spanish, we give 6 minutes. So we want to provide that opportunity for translation. So we will move forward. Ms. Sims-Moten.
Okay. The first speaker is Rosario Zapata, followed by Oscar Zapata.
My name is Rosario Zapata. I am here to talk about 2 at-risk students, Sofia and Javier. Sofia is an artist who has never been enrolled into a drawing or painting class, and she does a beautiful artwork. Sofia also is one of our many students who was 2 years behind in elementary school and is now at risk back on her high school. Javier, her brother, is in 5th grade and he's also behind 2 years. As you see, this is a pattern for many of our students. These kids were born in Santa Barbara. They were in preschool, elementary school, and I am working very hard to find a way that our children can raise their self-esteem, do better, and take high classes in junior high and high school so that they can go on college. Now, it must that every student be on level by 5th grade. One example of our success is my son, Oscar, a first generation Santa Barbara with ADHD, impulsivity, a speech delay. Since preschool, we have worked together with the county, the school, a private tutor, COM, and our church to change the direction of my son. He still needs to work hard on reading and writing better, and that is one of our challenges. He already knows that we need to work 3 or 4 times harder than an average student. We were able to do this because we have learned to reach for help, but many parents do not know how to do this. We worry so much about safety in our community and being multicultural. That is an excellent idea, but how are we going to do it? Our students are overlooked, falling into the crack 2-3 years behind an elementary school. We need to coordinate ways for the school to identify these kids so that they get early intervention. Parents, pediatricians, teachers, counselors, we all need to get together to help these children. I do appreciate your time, and I hope you all listen to this matter.
Thank you. Oscar, you're next.
Wait, I get a new 3 minutes, correct?
Yes, you do.
Okay. Okay.
To be followed by Erica Dixon. You're fine. Go ahead.
Okay. First of all, I want to say my name is Isai Zapata, and of course, that's my mom. And I want to say thank you, first of all, for those who have helped me throughout my childhood, and most of all, how I was as a child in elementary school. Because I was that kind of kid that if you were my teacher in elementary school, you were not looking forward to teaching me. To be honest, I was a violent disruptive, and still kind of distracting student. Even ask my librarian. I distract her classes. I'm very sorry. But I just want to say, because of my mom and my parents' help, that the communication that she had with the school when I was a kid, they had the communication to help me, that I had a one-on-one person to help me throughout elementary school. That kind of helped me, because in a way, it felt like I had someone to communicate to about my feelings and things to help me to make myself a better student. And not only that, I did activities outside of school to take my energy that I used to have in school outside of it. So I did many sports, almost all you can name. I did volleyball, I did golf, tennis, basketball, swim team, water polo, soccer, etc. And because of all those things, I also participated and took part of many activities outside of school, such as Boy Scouts and also volunteering at the hospice center. These two things are very close to my heart because it kind of gave me a new perspective on life and also to see the real world and to help other people in many ways. Because for Boy Scouts, there's always this one thing I will always remember. It's because in one particular part of the year, we stopped by throughout neighborhoods and dropped bags. And those bags we asked for donations of cans for food, and we delivered them to the food bank for those people who needed it. And that kind of just made me feel good in a way. And also the hospice center. I was in the department for the Loan Closet, which pretty much is a non-profit organization that pretty much gave people supplies, medical supplies to help them cure or go through, let's say, a surgery or
30 seconds.
Oh, no, already? Okay, a surgery or other things that they're going through. For example, we provide them commodes, walkers, wheelchairs, etc. And I want to say, without the help, I wouldn't be the person I am today. I want to just say that in La Colina, the one thing I'm really proud of is that for both of those years I attended, I got Student of the Month twice. And also, I was a straight A student and everything. And I just want to say, now I'm a current student at San Marcos High School, junior high, and I take all AP and honor classes. I'm on the San Marcos Junior Varsity Water Polo team, and I was very happy that you discussed the Entrepreneurship Academy because I'm also in that as well. And again, lastly, I just want to say thank you for my community, my school, and most of all, the love and care I got from my mother. Thank you.
Thank you. Erica Dixon. You did good. Erica to be followed by Kenneth Loke.
Wow, what a tough act to follow. My name's Erica Dixon. I'm a parent of a San Marcos high school freshman, and I'm a founding member of Santa Barbara Parents for High School Safety. And so I'm really here in that role tonight just to thank you. To thank you for reinstating our student resource deputy. That was huge for our community. So that's why I'm here, is just to say thank you. And to thank you for moving forward with the task force on school climate and safety. You're making good on the promises that you made to parents and to students, and that means a lot. So thank you. Stepping out of my role as a founding member of Santa Barbara Parents for High School Safety, I want to touch on something that came up at the last meeting. Several parents came up and spoke about their difficulty accessing interpreter services for the purpose of student-parent conferences and for understanding their students' homework. And that took my breath away. So, behind you, the mission statement is to empower students to reach their full potential. And as we know, when parents are involved, students do better. So you've done such an amazing job with school safety. I'm counting on you to do an amazing job on this issue for students and parents who do not speak English and who want to be involved and who want to support their students. This is really important, and I know you're going to do a good job. Thank you.
Kenneth Look, to be followed by Jacqueline Inda.
My name is Kenneth Locke. I've been in this community for about 20 years. I've spoke before this board before. I'm just getting back into town. Just thought I'd take the opportunity to speak before you. I have a project that's called Tennisance, the Renaissance of Tennis, or the Tennisance method. In this teaching method, I'm actually explaining now how tennis is an exercise, and then actually what an exercise actually is. We've kind of confused what exercise with sports. I'm sorry to say that sports actually should not be included under that definition of what an exercise is. When it comes to tennis, I'm the first tennis player to become, say, enlightened, to become aware, and the whole idea of the mind-body integration. So like the combination of being a mentally healthy, mentally vital, and then physically vital or healthy, strong. And then the idea is what she just mentioned, the full potential, so the person can reach their full potential. It turns out that the sport of tennis historically has not provided it's not providing the children with the means for reaching their full potential. It's pretty basic. Turns out that I promote ambidexterity and understand how that's connected with holistic health. And so right now the tennis players on the tennis team, they are not ambidextrous. And what I discovered is that to be an athlete, it requires a person to actually become ambidextrous. Yeah, I just wanted to bring that up. When it comes to the children's education and, again, reaching their full potential, I find in the idea of that make it possible for them to entertain the idea of becoming an exercise scientist. And when it comes to understanding the mind-body integration, holistic health, as well as spirituality. And what I found is that the mind-body integration is based, when I have 30 seconds here, is based on complete knowledge for the mind.
30 seconds.
In relation to the complete exercise. And once a person is on board with that relationship, the spirituality is actually based on developing a balance with the whole body. So right now I have to say that the sports is kind of separating the children from becoming mentally healthy, physically healthy, and actually as well as spiritually healthy. Again, the Tennisance method, I have videos up on YouTube, Instagram, and the other one. Thank you.
Thank you. Jacqueline Inda, followed by Maria Carrillo.
Hello, school board members. I'm here on behalf of parents of Adelante, as I'm a parent of Adelante as well. We believe in bilingual education, and we love to see our students grow. Because we are growing and our school is growing, we're going to be going through the process of a recertification with you in 2019. In that process, or before that process, we really want to start to engage and work together with your schools, with your school staff, to be able to reach a goal of expansion within Adelante, to be able to reach our goal, our ultimate goal of being able to have bilingual education from pre-K all the way through 8th grade, and maybe beyond. We know that the state standards have changed and allow bilingual education through university colleges, and we would like to have that kind of opportunity and dialogue before we move forward into doing all of our renewal process. So I'll keep it short to that. Basically, we're here to request to be put on agenda so that we can present to you what our goal will be throughout the summer in creating a feasibility study and a facility study and working in partnership with you to be able to achieve that in the near future. So thank you.
Hola, Hola, mi nombre es María Carrillo, estoy en 5º grado y estoy en Adelante Charter School. Es muy importante para mí y para mis compañeros de escuela que Adelante llega a 8º grado porque es muy importante de comunicarse en más de un idioma. Y también es muy importante para mí para poder comunicar con mis abuelitos. Hi, my name is Maria Carrillo. I'm in 5th grade. I'm in Adelante Charter School. It's important for my classmates and I to have Adelante go up to 8th grade because it is very important to learn more than one language. It is also very important to me because I can communicate with my grandparents.
Thank you.
I believe you have other.
Yes. So Brian, can you reset the clock? Yes, I have Elise Rubicova, followed by Allison Four.
Hola, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Alice. Gracias por su tiempo. Para mí me gusta estar aquí parada hablando después de los que han hablado ya antes de mí, escuchando cómo es importante el tener el apoyo de la comunidad, de los papás, de gente involucrada, de interpretaciones en conferencias. Se me hace muy importante. En mi familia necesitamos ese tipo de ayuda también. Yo soy bilingüe. Mis hijos están haciendo bilingües, pero hubo un momento en que no querían hablar español. Y para mí es importante que hablen español todo el tiempo. Aquí se pierde mucho eso y es parte de su cultura. Tienen que sentirse orgullosos de saber un español en lugar de sentirse menospreciados por hablar ese idioma. Para mí es importante que lo sepan, que lo conozcan, que se sientan orgullosos de serlo y que al mismo tiempo aquí se apoye y se sienta que es esa parte, que es bueno el tener un doble idioma, como escuchamos ahorita a la pequeñita, en lugar de sentirse que es un menos. Es una herramienta, no algo de sentirse avergonzados. Hi, my name is Alice Rubalcaba. Thank you so much for the opportunity of being here today. I'm really happy to be talking about this after hearing the parent involvement, the need of the parent involvement, the need of the interpretation in parent conferences. It's just super important for us as a community to have that support in here. I am bilingual and my kids are bilingual, but for a moment they didn't want to speak Spanish to us. So it's really hard for us to be losing our culture when it seems for them it was kind of like a shame to be speaking Spanish instead of being a tool for them and feel proud of that. So for me it's really important to have that support and to have Adelante, to have that community for us in here. Because for us sometimes it's like we feel isolated in our families. We start speaking English at home and we start speaking English in the parks, in schools and everything, and we forget about our own culture. So when you feel isolated in that sense and you don't have the support that you have a community, we need a community that support that. And Adelante has been us so much for that. So we just are asking for you guys to include us in the meeting in May so that we can share with you all these benefits that we have, and we really appreciate that, your time. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Allison Four. I have twin boys who are first grade students at Adelante. I'm a former teacher myself. I taught for 11 years in Northern California, and for part of that time at a dual immersion school. And I worked for a long time to learn Spanish myself as an adult, and I believe really strongly in the power of being bilingual, and what that adds to my life has been really helpful to my career, as well as personally very satisfying. And I hope for my boys to have that in their future too. If there had been the opportunity to have them in a dual immersion school from preschool, I totally would have done it. Before we moved here, while I was gigantically pregnant with twins, I was looking for dual immersion schools to put them in because that was really important to me. And when we got into the preschool that we got into, I was trying to get the parents there to be speaking Spanish with the kids so that they could learn. So this is something that I really would love my boys to learn, that they would not only have the benefits of being bilingual, but to learn how to build cross-cultural relationships with friends and how to learn from people who are from a different culture. It's really important to our family, and I'm really glad to be in a community that supports bilingual education, and I'm looking forward to the support of the board as we move forward with Adelante's plans to expand. I really hope that it can happen while my boys are still able to benefit from it. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes the speakers.
All right, thank you very much. We're moving now to acceptance of donations for April 24th, 2018. Do we have a motion?
Yes, I move to accept with gratitude the donations.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. All right, it passes unanimously. We're now moving to item E, the consent agenda. And I want to ask fellow board members, are there any items you would like to pull?
Yes.
Ms. Sims-Moton?
Yes, E1.
Anyone else? So, do I have a motion to approve the remaining consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. We'll now move to item F, our action agenda. Board action number 1 on Student Discipline Education Code 48918, case number 201718-18.
In the case of 201718-18, move approval of, I need to look at your thing.
Here. Let me pull up this.
Apologize for the technical difficulties. Thank you. In the case of 201718-118, move approval of full expulsion for 1 school year, which ends January 2019.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Item F2, Board Action on Student Discipline Education Code 48918, case number 201718-19.
In the case of 201718-19, stipulated agreement, move approval, expulsion with enforcement suspended, 1 school year, which ends January 2019.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Passes unanimously. Moving to item F3, Board Action on Student Discipline Education Code 48918, case number 201718-26.
In the case of 201718-26, move approval, full expulsion, 1 school year, which ends January 2019.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Moving on to item F4, Board Action on Student Discipline Education Code 48918, case number 201718-28.
In the case of 201718-28, move approval, full expulsion, 1 school year.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Item F5, Board Action on Student Discipline Education Code 48918, case number 201718-29.
In the case of 201718-29, move approval, expulsion with enforcement suspended, 1 semester ends June 2018.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Passes unanimously. Item F6, Board Action on Student Discipline Education Code 48918, case number 201718-32.
In the case of 201718-32, stipulated agreement, move approval, full expulsion, 1 school year, which ends January 2019.
Can I just clarify on that, because is that a suspended expulsion in this, as part of the stipulated agreement?
Not showing that here. That's 201718-32. Ms. Wagner's looking that up. No, it's the next one then.
Second, then.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Moving to item F7, Board Action on Student Discipline Education Code 48918, case number 201718-35.
In the case of 201718-35, stipulated agreement, move approval, expulsion with enforcement suspended, 1 school year, ending January 2019.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Moving on to item F8, Board Action on Student Discipline Education Code 48918, case number 201718-39.
In the case of 201718-39, stipulated agreement, move approval, expulsion with enforcement suspended, 1 school year, which ends January 2019.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. All right, we're now moving on to item, let's see here. F9, analysis of bid protest and recommendation regarding rejection of bid of Acacia Environmental Construction Incorporated and approval of contract award to AMG and Associates for the Santa Barbara High School Peabody Grandstand replacement and stadium renovation project, new landscaping and irrigation. Mr. Hetyank.
Thank you, Mr. Masawoka and board members. The district elected to issue 4 contracts for Peabody Stadium in an effort to save money. A general contract to build the stadium, a contract for the artificial turf, a contract for the track surface, and a separate contract for landscaping. This was an effort to save on the overhead of the project. This project was bid. The low bidder was Acacia. The second low bidder was AMG. AMG filed a protest letter, so we went through the usual process that we do whenever we receive a bid protest. We notify the contractor that's been protested and legal counsel, and then ask that contractor to provide a response. Legal counsel has reviewed the protest letter, the response provided by the low bidder, and has recommended that we find the low bidder non-responsive for the project, and that we award the contractor to the contract to the second low bidder, AMG Incorporated, or AMG and Associates, I'm sorry, who is also the current contractor on the project. At issue is the good faith effort for disabled veteran business enterprises, and this is part of the education code and a requirement for the project. It was clearly stated in the bid documents as a requirement, and unfortunately the low bidder did not take part in that effort until after he was notified that he was the low bidder. So we're asking you to find the low bidder non-responsive and uphold the bid protest and award the contract to AMG and Associates. This project is over budget now as far as the bid by $77,000. Our budget for the landscaping was $900,000, and AMG's bid is $977,000. We've been doing extremely well on change orders. We're basically out of the ground now at Peabody Stadium, and most of the things that we were scared of would have been discovery items, what we found while we were digging. So I'm very confident in taking this extra amount out of the contingency for the project.
Board, Ms. Capps.
Thank you for that explanation. That helped me. I read this about 4 times because it's very confusing, I think, for my sake and the public's. Can you just explain what non-responsive means?
Non-responsive means that the bidder did not provide all of the documentation that was required with the bid documents when they submitted their bid. In other words, if they're non-responsive, we don't say non-qualified, because every contractor that has a California State Contractor's License of the right classification is qualified to bid a project. But when a contractor neglects to complete the bid form in totality, then we kind of find them non-responsive if the omission is of a greater or great enough degree where we would have trouble defending ourselves by not addressing that protest. In this case, it happened to be the disabled veterans form. There's many forms that get submitted with a contract, affidavits that you didn't conspire with anybody else to fix prices. You need to sign your bid. You need to clearly list the bid amount. Confusing, you need to list all of your subcontractors that have greater than 0.5% of value of the contract. There are many items in a construction contract documents when the bids are submitted other than just giving us the price. And so when these items aren't followed and it's a error to the degree that we don't feel comfortable waiving it and denying the protest, then we need to find that contractor unresponsive, which is basically the same as upholding the bid protest.
And was the protest about unresponsiveness, or is that just standard procedure to protest?
Unresponsive is what we call a bid protest. When we find a contractor unresponsive, we're asking you to find that that contractor did not submit a complete bid as required by the contract documents, and therefore probably had an advantage over other contractors, possibly, for not doing things the way they were supposed to.
I see.
And we're using public money, and we need to be extremely careful that we're fair.
And how common is a protest? It seems very common.
We had a protest when we awarded the contract for Peabody Stadium, and the protest, we did not approve the protest. We denied the protest. We found that it was that the bidder was responsive. In public contracting, it happens probably somewhere between 5 and 10% of the time.
So if I understand this correctly, the lowest bid we're not going with. We're going with the second lowest bid because the lowest bid was insufficient.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And just to add on to the point of non-responsive, are they aware of that language and what the requirements of could potentially be non-responsive? Are they aware of those details of that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Parker. So I appreciated the letter from Acacia, and in response to what's happened, and essentially their point was that they were confused and thought that it wasn't quite clear enough. And so I guess that's one of my questions: is there something that the district should be doing in terms of the forms that went out that could have made it clear to this contractor that they needed to submit forms that they didn't?
I think the bid forms were very clear on the requirement. My personal opinion is that the contractor may have not been that familiar with public works projects and the requirement of public works projects with school districts throughout California, and may not have had the person who is preparing all the documents check all the boxes on what we need to have when we submit, and something just got missed.
Okay, thank you. And with that, I'll go ahead and move to, I wanted to see if I can have the exact wording here. Sustain the bid protest, reject the bid of Acacia Environmental Construction, and approve the award of contract for project to AMG Associates.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Moving forward to item F10, presentation and approval of Santa Barbara Unified School District Library Master Plans. Ms. Carey? Are you?
Yeah, I'll start it
leading?
off. Sherry can go ahead and head over there. Thank you, board. Good evening. How often do you get to say the librarians are in the house? But all the librarians are in the house right now. So I just wanted to appreciate their presence here. I'll let Sherry introduce herself and who has joined her here for the presentation. But Dr. Ramirez and I also want to recognize the efforts of Jennifer Foster, who has served as a kind of liaison between district office leadership and the librarians as a PLC, and we really do view their work as PLC work in the true spirit of our PLCs. They function as a unit, elementary and secondary, but also do a lot of good work in the junior high specific grade band and then the high school specific grade band. And it has been customary to hear annual or periodic reports from our librarians. I think you'll be very interested to learn about the status of our libraries as resources, and also about the kind of continually, but especially recently, the kind of interesting and maybe little known about ways that libraries are evolving. So we want to just, as I said, welcome Sherry to speak on behalf of them as a group, and also leave some time for your questions or comments following that.
Thank you. Thank you for having us tonight. We are so excited about the work that's happening in our school libraries. We're grateful for the opportunity to share some of that work with you this evening. Before we take questions on our library master plan, I'd like to take a moment to have all of our district librarians introduce themselves to you so you can begin to match faces with names. I'm Sherry Bryan. I'm the teacher librarian at San Marcos High School.
Heather Magner, Just Public High School.
Jamie Allison, Elementary District Librarian.
Amy Woods, Junior High Librarian at Waukegan Junior High.
Shannon Curtis, Lookout Librarian.
Ursula Farrell, Librarian at Goleta Valley Junior High School. I'll be retiring this year. I would like to introduce the incoming librarian, Amy McMillan.
Hi, thanks for having me. Caitlin Chilton, Santa Barbara Junior High School.
And Marcia Barr, Santa Barbara High School.
Great. We hope you've had a chance to review the library master plan. We hope the plan has given you a sense of some of the powerful teaching and learning that's taking place under the leadership and guidance of our credentialed teacher librarians. We're proud to be instructional partners and collaborators at our sites. We work with classroom teachers to engage students in academic research for history, like Walk Through the Middle Ages, model projects at La Colina, comparative religions at Goleta Valley, World War I at Santa Barbara High School. We work collaboratively with teachers in science, in health, in world language, in English courses across grade and ability levels. We're equally proud to be at the forefront of technology and the makerspace movement, creating collaborative learning spaces in our libraries wherever we can to offer students equal access to 3D printers, green screens, to host STEAM activities, coding weeks, tech take-apart events. We're pleased to be leading the work around digital citizenship in our district, designing curriculum and teaching lessons on digital footprints, online safety, cyberbullying, and ethical behavior online. And of course, we continue to take great pride in our work around literacy and reading, whether it be through hosting author talks or book clubs, purchasing and promoting ebooks for students to read on their new iPads, making book trailers on iMovie, or improving accessibility to our libraries by boldly hacking the Dewey Decimal System and reorganizing our libraries. We get students excited about reading and about books. To this end, we are fervently committed to not only creating and maintaining library collections that provide mirrors and windows for our students, but also to helping our teachers create culturally responsive curriculum in their classrooms. We're constantly engaged in the process of evaluating our work and improving our practice. We're proud to serve as leaders at our school sites and in the district, and we are so honored to be doing the critical work of teacher librarians. Thank you for reviewing and receiving our plan tonight. We'd love to extend an invitation to all of you to come see our libraries in action at any time. We'd love to have you, answer your questions, introduce you to our students, our teachers. We would like now to make ourselves available to you to answer any questions you may have about the plan or about our work. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. And so now you're going to get stuck with me probably visiting all of your libraries, but I'm really excited too. We're going to move forward. Anyone, I'm sure we have a voice at the end. Ms. Parker.
It is so nice to see all of you. And it's so timely because we just had a presentation at our joint meeting with the Santa Barbara Public Library. And so it's actually great to have these two juxtaposed to see the work that we're doing within our district and think about that in the context of what's going on in the community as well. I'll first note, of course, this says 2018, and we're now at the end of 2018. And normally, I think that we would see this a little bit earlier in the year. And I know from when I was board president and working things out that on our end we had some scheduling problems. Yeah. I hope that we will see you again sooner, is what I think I'm getting at, that we see the 2018-2019 plan, more towards the fall than the spring. I thought this was absolutely terrific, and I love where you want to go. In terms of what came up with the public library, a couple of things I would note is they are really seeking to collaborate with you all, and it's hard to figure that out, and I know that Mr. Matsuoka has some plans around that, and I know that you will all be very involved in that. So as that moves forward, I hope that there can be not just meetings, but actual collaboration between the two entities. And that might be something that you want to think about as a point in your 1819 master plan, thinking about the connection to the community libraries as well, because I think we'll all be stronger together. But the money piece is something I wanted to talk about, and for us to be aware of as a board, because there are needs there. And actually, one of the things that came up with the public librarians, we have individual teachers asking us for help. The elementary schools in particular, one librarian for the entire district and then techs at the sites. And I know, I'm sure you are doing the best that you can, right? But it's a lot. And when teachers are seeking that kind of collaboration, if we had teacher librarians at the sites, that could be the coordinating piece, right? That could be moving the work forward. So I'm aware of that, but I'm also really aware of where our budget stands. And so I would absolutely agree that it would be important to move forward, if we can afford it, with at least bringing in another elementary teacher librarian to make them regional, if we can afford to do that. I think there's so much research around the importance, the effect of having a school librarian in terms of student literacy and making progress. And where does it start? It starts at the elementary level. So I feel like it's doing our students a disservice to ignore that. And so I was looking, and I could see that obviously there are secondary needs as well. I am so grateful that each of the high schools and junior highs has a dedicated teacher librarian, and obviously you're understaffed. But I worry a little bit more at this stage about elementary. And so those are my 2 cents, but I think the plan is terrific, and I want to be careful about just acknowledging that we're receiving the plan, because I know that we can't fund everything that is in the master plan, but I sure wish and hope that we can move forward on some pieces of that.
Ms. Capps.
Yeah, I echo the thanks. Thanks for being here, and it's wonderful to see you all together. And on the elementary, I wanted to ask about one of the findings is and it's something that we've spoken about before, but just the age of the collection and how we actually modernize. And it seems to me like something that the public could potentially be engaged in, but that's just one suggestion. But if you don't mind summarizing verbally your recommendations for how we bring more of the actual books up to speed, so that we're not dealing with books from the 90s, the majority of which, and et cetera. Thank you.
Jamie, do you want to talk about elementary schools?
Great, thanks, Jim.
Sure.
You have to go there.
Oh, brother. So we have Destiny, it's our database, and we do collection analyses, and that's how we found out that each of our 10, now 9 sites were about 25 years out of date. We weeded last year all fiction, and now we're working, nonfiction, now this year fiction. And we have a long ways to go. So in terms of public help, that would be amazing. And the thing that our donations, we really want hardbacks, but it's beyond just books. So our elementary space is expanding beyond books. In fact, it's innovative in maker spaces and green screens and that sort of thing. So we need to serve our 21st century students and get them prepped for junior high and high school. So books certainly will always be at the forefront, and literacy.
But there's so many, it's kind of baffling to decide and determine where to start, but of course books, right? So our e-books or print. So of course, yes, we need public help in every which way. Each site is funded what they're funded, and I'm interested in kind of looking at how to make that more equitable across the district. So I don't know if that answers your question. We can pair up with parent communities, but it's not always equal across all 9 sites.
I guess I'll just leave it, and I think it's something we expressed when we met, but I expressed when I met. If there is a way in which maybe perhaps another district does actually engage the public effectively, because I know that you can't just sort of say, we need books. You need to be very strategic and systematic. So I would be interested in helping with that piece if that is a priority that rises to the top, because I do think just in previous other experiences and being a mom of a first grader, when the teacher puts out the word that we need books, if she gets flooded with books, it's such a tangible way in which we know we can help our kids at not a very high cost. So if there's ever a kind of a campaign in the works that would engage the community, I would enjoy being helpful in that regard.
Right, thank you. We have like parent square ideas where we would send out parent squares and book wish lists attached to Chaucer's perhaps, but besides grant money, we wrote 20 grants and received 20 grants last year. We wrote 20 grants this year. Hopefully we'll receive 20 grants this year on top of, so we're trying to do what we can do, but I will team up with you.
Anyone else? Oh, Mr. Perez Ulloa.
So I've been meeting with some parents recently, and one concern was that at the elementary level was that there might not be enough, and you've addressed it, there might not be enough books at Lexile levels that would be appropriate for students. One suggestion that they asked was, is there any way to do like an inter-school loan? If a student is in 6th grade, but they're reading way past whatever is available at their elementary school, could they go to La Colina, Santa Barbara Junior High, et cetera? Because some of the parents had experience where they weren't allowed to. It's like, oh, you're at Franklin, you can't come over, for the books, because you're at the wrong school, for whatever reason. And I don't know if we can address that.
Sure. We engage in interlibrary loaning a lot among ourselves. And so I think the way that we would go about that would be for the student at Franklin, for example, to go to their librarian or library technician and ask for the book or books that they were looking for, and then the librarian would contact the junior high librarian, which would be how we would communicate, because we can't check out books to students that aren't our students. So I would check it out to another librarian who would then check it out to the student. So we are happy to do that. In fact, I'm borrowing books. We do that actually up and down. At the high school level, I borrow books from the junior highs sometimes when I have students who are reading at a lower level and I don't necessarily have those books. I can contact another librarian and say, can I borrow this book? She checks it out to me, and then I know what student has it, but she can't check it out to my student. I don't know if that's clear, but we're constantly engaged in that kind of borrowing.
Okay. And so if a student, like me, I never went into the library knowing what book I wanted to read. I just went through the stacks and saw what, really shown to me. Is there any way for the students to go to the other sites and go like, hey, I want to just kind of look through your sections after school? Because again, it's just, if you're a student that already knows what you want to read, fantastic. They can go to your tech and say, this is what I want. But if students want to explore.
You say what you're saying. I don't know what you're saying. I'm sorry.
So that has come up in the elementary space where most of our books are middle-aged, up to middle grade, so up to 12. We kind of stay away from young adult because of the social emotional content. And so we have this conversation with the library technicians a lot, and I mean, if parents want to sign off on a permission slip to go to young adult, then that might be a solution, because there are some emotional issues in young adult that a 6th grader or 4th grader the parents may not know about, that they should know about.
And does that permission slip already exist?
I don't know. I'm new in this position. I don't know of that, but I think it should be. As a parent, I think we should have a permission slip. Do you know? Junior high? No?
I don't know.
Yeah. So, just a little protective of students' social, emotional.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it may be that I don't know because I'm a high school librarian and I don't censor anyone's reading because I am at the highest level, so I don't, I am engaged in the work of collection development and I read reviews and I carefully select what we have, but I don't ever say to a student, you're too young for that book because I have teenagers. That's who I'm serving. So I don't think we have something that exists for elementary to be able to freely browse a high school or a junior high collection that I know of. So Amy at La Colina is saying the catalog is available online and they could see that. Yeah, Shannon.
I will say at La Cumbra that I work with Adams Elementary and with the Community Academy, which is on site, and we do a lot of sharing. So I'll have some of the sixth grade teachers contact me and say, not necessarily maybe a student, individual student, but a group of students is working on this. We don't have enough books. What do you have? And then we work together, and I send them over. Like Sherry said, I check them out to the librarian, and then that librarian or tech is responsible for disseminating them to the elementary and then getting them back to me. But we do a lot of that. I have not had any requests from Franklin, which feeds to us. I'm happy to do that if that is. But that's a request. But I do it.
Franklin does
on the regular. I would say with
feed to you.
The Santa Barbara Community Academy and Adams.
Yeah.
So that is something that does happen. Yeah.
Yes, Ms. Parker. And it's great to have this conversation because I think it would happen more, but some teachers know, and this is what I appreciate, that it's the teachers who can go and judge what's appropriate, or if they can pick out what's appropriate. It's not just a student browsing, but it would be great if all teachers knew that was a possibility. So, something to think about.
All right, well, I just wanted to acknowledge the amazing master plan. And but what always sort of rises to the top for me is looking here. I see that you're trying to build culturally proficient library, and so I kind of wanted to know what are you doing in that process, because I'm looking at the age of the books. You're kind of like, So just kind of curious the processes that you're going through, and obviously it sounds like you need funding for that, but I'm just curious if you could just kind of explain that.
Sure, I'm happy to speak, and if anyone else wants to chime in. Okay. I do want to say that I think the average age is maybe a little bit misleading because of things like reference books that we've had around for a while, a long, long while, that some of us are actually very actively weeding out, getting rid of, because we are constantly buying new books. I mean, especially at the secondary level, and Jamie, I won't speak too much to the elementary school, but hundreds of new books. I mean, I don't know if anyone has a number of your average purchase in a year, but we're adding new books to we are adding new books to our collections, particularly books that are reading books, independent reading books, fiction and narrative nonfiction, high interest kinds of books, to support the learning in English language arts and just to promote literacy and reading. So I'm not sure the age is as reflective as it might seem at first glance, so I will say that. In terms of mirrors and windows, I especially want to say that several of us are very actively involved in helping our English language arts departments with book groups and replacing some of the traditional English language arts curriculum with some more relevant current titles and titles that students can see themselves in. So we've been doing a lot of work with different grade levels where we say, we suggest books because we read them. We can suggest books to the English teachers and say, how about these ideas, instead of maybe a book that you have been teaching for years or that we have been teaching for 40 years. Maybe we can think about some other titles. So I think for several of us, that's a lot of the work that we've been doing in terms of helping teachers sort of look at their curriculum and think about what books we're teaching, either whole class or in small groups and literature circles, transform that. And then in our own library collections, we're always looking for diverse voices, on top of the We Need Diverse Books movement, and how can we have any student that comes into our library see themselves on the shelf.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you all. So, anyone else? Yes.
Dr. Ramirez has come.
Dr. Ramirez.
Hi, good evening, Board. Just want to echo everybody's feelings and sentiments about the Library Master Plan. It's been a long time in the work, and we've had a lot of different conversations, both collectively and individually, at least between Jamie Allison and myself in the elementary space, and with the help and support of the library techs. I just wanted to remind the Board that, or invite the Board to consider that when we talk about just reading materials, it extends far beyond just the library space. In fact, about, I would say, 8 months ago, the Board approved level libraries, and those numbers now total in the thousands. And as we actually move forward with a balanced literacy model, we're going to have many more print materials at the immediate availability of students in their classroom. So the question then becomes, and I think the Library Master Plan certainly does address this, what does the library space look like in the future? What does it look like beyond the more traditional stacks of library or stacks of library books, and that's where our teachers and our teacher librarians have been so instrumental in driving that space forward toward a more progressive and forward-leaning vision. But I just wanted to offer that up as further context because I think it's important to have that at least in the back of our minds.
Can I add one more thing also?
Yes, you may. Mr. Rickman. Those never work, I don't know, but.
I would just like to add that we couldn't do our work in technology without the help of the librarians, that they are really on the front lines of our tech work. They interact with students constantly, helping fix problems. Like I said, we would be lost without them. So I just wanted to appreciate you all publicly for that.
All right, any other comments, questions?
I just want to say I appreciate you bringing up the leveled readers in the classroom. I mean, I do see that as a very different part of what goes on at schools that's quite separate from the library in a lot of ways. And even, I mean, I'm very conscious of all my professional development groups and how like anti-AR they are, for example. And I'm like, okay, it has a place in our particular district with some of our students in certain cases, and yet they also need to have this free choice, and they need direction in that free choice, and some good decisions about what goes in those libraries and what's available to them. But it's interesting. It's interesting. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and move that is the wording that we receive. It's approve.
Approve the master.
Okay, I'm going to approve the Santa Barbara Unified School District's, move approval of the Santa Barbara Unified School District's Library Master Plan for secondary and elementary school years for the 2017 and 2018 school year.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and it passes unanimously. Thank you very much. We will now move to item F11, approval of resolution 2017/1839 regarding the elimination or reduction of classified services. Mr. Matsuoka.
So this item is in reference to classified positions, and to give the board a little bit of visibility, Mr. Rouse, if you'll go to the detailed list. So I'll kind of summarize these in like groups. First, let me explain OAS. So by ed code and contract for classified positions, as we move these people to new sites, we actually have to do a layoff from OAS as we place them at a new site. So remember, everybody at OAS is finding a new home, but the technical steps is we have to lay them off and then place them. The other ones are due to shifts in funding. You notice they're like part-times, 0.375. So these are jobs, notice these are not certificated teachers. So they're the classified staff. So sometimes funding is slowing down, or the program is shifting. So these are all minor adjustments. Some of these may be brought back next year as school plans are brought forward. So know that this actually goes on every spring. There are these minor adjustments, except for the OAS, which is a one-time event for us.
Board, any comments, questions? Ms. Sims-Moton?
Yeah, I just wanted clarification on Alexandria. So is she getting laid off, or is it just reducing her hours? I was just a little unclear on what that meant.
Sure.
That is currently situated as a reduction in hours. Alejandra happens to be funded through private grants. And there's also a bit of a shift in the allocation to the family resource centers at Franklin, La Cumbre, and out in Goleta.
So if the resolution is saying layoff, it's not necessarily just layoff. It could include, or definitely does include, reduction of hours, right? They're not all laid off.
Correct. In this case, it has to do with the fact that there is a reduction in current status relative to full-time employment.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Park?
Just a clarification as well. So their hours are being reduced or eliminated. Are we seeing them because they are low enough in seniority that they don't have rights to someplace else right now? And so there are some probably that did have rights in these locations that are being just straight shifted to other jobs, and we wouldn't see them here.
Right, and in all of these cases, they are going to be the lowest person in seniority in that job classification.
Okay.
But I'm making contact with Ms. Peak in case she has any exceptions to that.
I think there are some exceptions. I'm sorry. Someone really tall was up here. Makes me realize how short I really am. The initial layoff will be going to the individuals that are on this list, because those are the actual positions that are being eliminated. A layoff, you have to remember, is not, from the HR perspective, it's not necessarily the people, it's the position that's being removed. So these positions are being removed. The next step that's going to occur is the bumping. So for instance, the elementary office manager at Open Alternative is going to bump the least senior or a less senior office manager.
All right, that makes sense. So what we're looking at really here are the positions, not necessarily the people attached to the positions.
Correct.
Okay, all right. Well, that, okay, thank you.
Yeah, that was my question as well. So if it's, because it is confusing, if it's the position, can we not have the names, or is it we need to have the names?
You have to have the names, because what occurs with a layoff, and typically I've done certificated, not the classified, but the position is being removed. So because the position is being removed at Open Alternative for the elementary office manager, then it starts a bumping between other elementary office managers. Does that help?
It does help, but if you're just looking at that slide without your explanation, it's unclear in terms of its positions that we're looking at. So I don't know if that's clear as from background information that comes so that we're aware of that. Make sure that your explanation is tied to this slide, because without your explanation, it does look like it's the people.
I'll make sure that
Okay. Thank you.
that gets communicated.
And can I just ask procedurally, why do we pass that resolution?
My understanding has always been that it's a requirement for school districts to pass resolutions having to do with layoffs. So for instance, back in February, I believe it was, we did the certificated ones, and then when I sent the notifications out to people that they were being laid off, they get a copy of that resolution, because it's part of the whole legal procedure of a layoff.
And I imagine that you had such a successful job fair that these individuals were hopefully encouraged to be part of that, et cetera.
Well, our job fair was for certificated.
Oh, certificate, okay.
We are going to be doing a classified job fair, hopefully in June, so.
And these individuals will be,
Oh, and some of these are going to have jobs next year because they have rights to bump less senior people.
I see. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And I heard that the job fair was a very great success. So I want to acknowledge the work that you did, because I
Thank
know
you.
you coordinated it and put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. So
Yes.
thank you, Ms.
We have,
Peak.
and our team, we have an amazing team in HR.
Definitely. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, so we're going to need to take action. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. So we will now move on to item F12, second reading and approval of Exhibit 5132, Dress and Grooming Dress Code Policy. Dr. Wagenick.
Good evening, Dr. Reed. Board members, I bring to you the dress code policy for action. You requested at the last meeting, when it came on report, that I reach out to the ASB leaderships at the 3 traditional high schools, and I did that. I heard back from Santa Barbara High School. I know Dos Pueblos was looking at it, but I did not receive any feedback from them. The Santa Barbara High School had 2 questions. They were, why no hats in the classroom? And so I tried to send a thoughtful response, and that is that the history of hats is that they are, it's a sign of respect to take them off in a classroom, and that professionally we don't wear hats in the classroom. And so that was my response. We'll see what they, if they come back with anything else. And then their other question was, are hard-soled slippers acceptable? Like, bath slippers, and I said, if yes, anything that meets the guidelines of footwear that's on that last page are acceptable. And so that was the feedback that I received. But other than that, they were happy with the changes. They did note they were happy to see some of that gendering that was taken out, and they agreed with the removal of the gang language. Any questions?
No, I would just say that the hard-soled slippers happens to be, I guess, the real cool thing to be wearing these days, so.
Exactly, and
So,
2 years from now,
yeah, we
it'll
may not
be
see it.
something
Right.
else, but they were concerned that
Yeah.
those would still be okay.
They got to wear those with the little fur on them. All right. So, do we have a motion? Ms. Parker?
I'll go ahead and move approval of board policy, of the exhibit 5132, dress and grooming. And if there's a second, I do have a question.
Second.
San Marcos, have they got this? I mean, you mentioned you knew Dos Pueblos was looking at it.
Right, so I sent a request to the activities directors of the 3 traditional high schools. I heard back from Rachel Rush at Santa Barbara High.
So that's when you
Scott
just know for
Gutendog,
sure.
And did not hear back from Aaron Solis.
Okay.
When I requested.
Okay. I do appreciate that at least we know that 2 of the 3 high schools have seen it, and that we got feedback from Santa Barbara High. So I appreciate that extra step.
So we have a second, and we're ready to vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, it passes unanimously. Thank you. So it's a tradition for us to take a 5-minute break before we do our report and discussion, so we will take that now. Thank you. So we're going to move on to report discussion agenda, G1. And we will have the report on spring and summer 2018 bond fund projects. Mr. Hetjunk.
Thank you, Mr. Masuoka, board members. We wanted to give the board an update on what is currently happening construction-wise at our schools this spring and summer, so the board would have knowledge of all of the various projects, so when they see them starting or people in the community ask you questions, that you're aware of everything that's going on with the bond funds. As you can see, from many of the agenda items in the past few weeks and in the coming weeks, we'll be awarding contracts and gearing up to do a lot of summer work. Most of our leaseback contractors have been identified. As soon as we get DSA approval, Division of the State Architect approval of a set of plans, then we're able to get the guaranteed maximum sum for that contractor and bring the final resolution to the board so they can start their work. On May 10, we will start the pool deck replacement at San Marcos High School. They decided that they would rather give that up early and get done early due to the use of the pool by swimming and water polo based on their seasons. So that's one of the projects that we'll be able to start early. Many things in the mix. As the board tonight awarded the award for the landscaping at Peabody, so I'll take my spreadsheet and update it with the current contractor. I didn't want to fill that in until the board took action. But I'd be happy to answer any questions. One project that's ongoing that's not on this list is the Flores Preschool program. We've cleared all the hurdles with flood and liquefaction, and the architect has an appointment on May 15th when that should receive DSA approval and we can start production of the building.
Ms. Parker. I would just say, I mean, as you know, Mr. Hetyank, it's communicating with school communities is so important around facilities, and I appreciate the time that you take to meet with principals and parents as needed. But I hope that our principals have all seen this list, they all know, and that they're actually communicating out with their parents, either that something is happening, or if it's not happening and they want it to happen, why it's not happening. Mm-hmm. And so I think sometimes there are some principals that they know it all, but they don't necessarily share it with their parents, and they may need a little assistance and reminders from the district that is something that it just benefits everybody in the long run if we're transparent about facilities projects, because there's so much need at all of our schools.
Thank you. We can address that.
All right, thank you. Thank you for bringing this forward and for being transparent with us as well.
Thank you.
Before we leave this item, the team has identified a software platform. It's called Colby, and it's used in other school districts to track funding, projects, timelines, and I would say we're getting everything loaded up into it. And so that will help make this more into what's called a Gantt chart. And then also what I would like you to see at some point is the budget amounts that are matched to these projects. You know, a lot of money is going to start moving this summer, so we will get, remember that spreadsheet that we have that simplifies it? We'll get you an update at the end of summer about, you know, how much has been spent. But once we get the software platform in place, we'll be able to communicate better and faster with you at this level. And Lauren and I are talking about our communication needs around the bond program. What we are finding is our capacity, PIO, superintendent, and cabinet team, the level of communication needed around a bond program of this magnitude, it's bigger than what we can manage. So we're taking a look at some outside resources. You know, we would hope we could keep up with it, but we're not able to keep up with it. So Lauren's tracking down some consultants that maybe we should partner with, and maybe we need them to get the communication flow started and then we can take it back. But that's a lot of work to communicate to our community, and we want images, we want websites. So I think you're probably going to see a proposal from staff pretty soon around that.
Great, thank you. So we'll now move to item G2 first reading and discussion of Board Policy 4119.11, sexual harassment. Mr. Matsuoka.
As you know, we've got quite a queue of board policies to bring to the attention of the board. The ones that you're seeing are ones that we feel are urgent due to local conditions, or we are being strongly encouraged to get some of these policies updated. And this one's a really important one. I mean, I think we've all watched, hopefully, the positive shifts around public attitudes around the workplace, around sexual harassment. And, you know, I would say our district practices are good, but I'm glad that we're updating this to CSBA's latest language, because everybody, male, female, deserves an environment that is free of harassment. So we bring you this policy update. It's CSBA language, and if you have any questions or suggestions, we'd be glad to hear them.
Ms. Capps.
Well, I certainly support revising this and making it as strong as possible. A couple things presented themselves to me, and I think it's really important that these are as airtight as possible, because I think that partially where we are in history is that policies have been sort of misconstrued, and the first suggestion I would like to propose is, rather than the word subject to disciplinary action, which allows for some room, that just be changed, will be disciplined, because that's the presumption of guilt is in the first part of the sentence, and so subject to disciplinary action implies that there is some potential that that disciplinary action might not be followed through. Does that make sense? Let's see. Right, yeah. Any district employee who engages or participates in sexual harassment or who aids, abets, incites, compels, or coerces another to commit sexual harassment in violation of this policy is subject to disciplinary action.
And what's your proposed verbiage?
You know, will be disciplined. Will be disciplined up to and including dismissal.
Will be or will face discipline? I don't know. Will be disciplined?
Yeah, I'm just reading slowly the first two-thirds of that sentence. Does that mean that an employee has been found guilty of sexual harassment? Because you're arguing for, if it's will be punished,
yes,
it means that we have found the employee guilty.
Yes.
And that's where I just want to make sure that the preamble of that sentence.
Right. Yeah, I made sure of that as well before suggesting that. So it's this employee has engaged and has participated.
How about will be disciplined, comma, with action up to and including dismissal?
Yeah, that's better grammar, yeah.
To pull that off.
Can you repeat that?
So, in violation of this policy, will be disciplined, comma, with action up to and including dismissal.
And I'm watching Ms. Trujillo type. So did you capture that? Great.
Great.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. And my second along the same lines is, and I believe I made this suggestion last year, but if you scroll down, let's see, I don't have it. Let's see. It's a difference between shall and must, and we had this discussion last year. But it's, yeah, another employee shall immediately report the incident to his or her supervisor. I'm just confused as to why we would give any openings for that person to decide not to. We had this conversation last year.
Yeah, I'm good with Just looking around, anybody?
And I think that that's important because I think it's important for the message to be sent to employees that it's not just something you should do, it's actually something that you have to do if you witness this kind of criminal behavior.
So last sentence, the supervisor or administrator who receives a harassment complaint must promptly notify the coordinator. Yeah, it's a stronger word than shall, so.
And actually, the shall previously as well, too. So both shalls replaced with.
It's the third line down. Employee must immediately report.
Yeah, I can support those. Dr. Wagener, comment?
Is the Title IX coordinator listed on this board policy? That was my question.
There's also a third shall. Complaints of sexual harassment shall be filed and investigated. So I don't know if we want to just be consistent with our shalls and musts.
Well, maybe that one is a will be filed and investigated.
So I think staff were good with changing two shalls to must in that paragraph.
Great, thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
Ms. Sims-Mountain.
It's on the, I think it's still the first page where it's saying providing training to employees. Is there a time limit or a, like, annual training that's provided?
2 years.
Ooh, y'all just have so much fun with that mic over there.
Yeah.
It don't
scaring
work.
me. Is it working?
Yes.
Okay. Management are required to do a mandatory training every 2 years. And what we have traditionally done as a district is at the start of the school year, we have provided a condensed version of the sexual harassment training at what's termed the San Marcos Day.
So where is that information in here? Or does it apply to be in this part? Is it just in your training documents, though? So that's part of the record?
It's one of the things, whenever we meet with new employees, one of the things they get is actually the harassment in the workplace policy that they have to read through and sign.
Okay.
And then we send an annual notification out through the San Marcos Day.
Okay. So is that, because I know I work for the county, we have to, it's actually, it's an online every year, so where is that recorded for records? I don't know if you keep them, but that might be something.
Actually, it goes through, we use Get Safety Trained Now, I think it's called, and it is part of their Munis record. It's just as if it was TB or child abuse reporting, which they have to do annually as well.
Okay. And then my second question on the second bullet, or number 2 actually, employees and others whom the policy may apply, does it may apply, or? Well, no, come back down, Brian, right there on number 2, where we've added that red. Employees and others to whom the policy may apply, is that an option? Doesn't it apply to every employee, or? I'm just asking.
Oh, it applies to every employee.
But it says it may apply.
Yeah.
Who are those others, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know if it's referencing our volunteers that we have.
I don't know. I'm just trying to make it clear. So that
I don't know.
Okay. But do we want to find out, and if it needs to be here? I guess is my question.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. I'd be glad to look into that.
A blanket statement.
But if we're trying to tighten this up, so I just want to make sure we're covered. That's all. I'm just trying to make sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Are we good to go on this?
What are the preferences for the board on this second reading? Would you like to see it kind of like we did the dress code? Want it to come back for full review, or consent? The one question mark is we've got to chase down what and others to whom it may apply. Tell you what my question that we'll have to ask CSBA is sometimes, we have vendors who come on our campuses a lot. I think that's probably where others applies to. Well, walk-on coach is an employee. So I think what might help is if we separate the sentence, because employees, they need to receive everything. We just have to clarify others. I know in my past experience, others sometimes gets into people who interact with the school district, people who come delivering stuff, and sometimes those create moments.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I was just doing some research on must, shall, and will.
Mm-hmm.
The courts have ruled that shall means just what you were saying, and also will is still, it hasn't been, the courts haven't ruled on will completely yet. The Supreme Court hasn't. So everybody suggests use must because the Supreme Court has said must means must. So I would suggest that we take will out also and include must.
All right. Thank you for that quick research.
Where was that instance of will?
It was the third one that I had pointed out. Further down. It's under complaints. Complaints of sexual harassment must be filed. Do you see that? Complaints? Okay. So are we comfortable with having it moved to the consent agenda if we, yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. So moving forward to G3, we will now look at the first reading and discussion of Board Policy 6145.2, athletic competition. Ms. Carey.
Okay, good evening again. I know that you've been provided with the BP and the green and red and strike-through text, as you're used to seeing, and just kind of extending the point that we have BPs to bring before you for revision and review and ultimately approval and adoption. This one is coming to you now because there were relatively recent changes to the California School Board Association's BP within the last 12 months, so in May of last year, and also in accordance with our federal program monitoring review, we recognized that there were upgrades we needed to make to certain language, particularly that involving gender, non-discrimination for gender and gender equity. But there's also some other portions there that you can see have to do with being compliant with Title IX, but also being consistent with our district's priority of equity, cultural proficiency, and in the cases of some of the safety things that are called out, improving our practices. In those cases, what we're really talking about is board policy coming up and becoming current with what our practice is. So those safety pieces already exist across our athletic programs, and now our board policy will be more current in describing them. I think the best way to approach this is probably to look at the highlighted bullets in the background document, but between that document and this board policy, I'm happy to respond to any questions or concerns or comments that you might have.
Ms. Capps.
Great, thank you. I had one question out of curiosity. What are the academic eligibility requirements?
2.0 GPA.
2.0, great. And then my two other questions are in the spirit of making this as consumer-friendly as possible.
Mm-hmm.
In the non-discrimination and equivalent opportunities section, the final point is any complaint regarding the district's athletic program shall be filed in accordance with the district's uniform complaint procedures. It'd be wonderful to actually direct somebody to the person, or rather than just saying, go check uniform positions, especially when these things aren't hyperlinked. Are they hyperlinked on the site? No. So I'd imagine we would lose someone at that point, right?
So the architects of how our site
I absolutely agree with that concept. The challenge for board policies is that these are timeless documents that, for example, some of these haven't been updated for 10 years, and websites, as you know, can be very fluid, and positions can be very fluid. So identifying the actual department or position so that people can go to that, and regardless of who that person is, an email address, a phone number, those things can change. So if we put that in board policy, the challenge is that that will get outdated quickly. But the department usually doesn't get outdated.
Sure, I understand that, but I just think that there's probably a middle road where you can actually say what to do without just leaving the reader, without any real information, just saying that. I mean, you could explain what the uniform complaint procedure is, probably in a sentence here to be added. I didn't go check myself to find out what the uniform complaint procedure is.
The board policies usually include this confer statement under each one to refer them to the board policy they should refer to if they have further questions about that element.
Right, no, I understand that. I'm just, again, trying to make it as user-friendly as possible. And so I would ask that if it can be surmised in a sentence, that can be added there. Thank you. And my last one is similar lines in terms of making this consumer-friendly and easy to understand. In eligibility, which is, I think, a bit further down. It says eligibility requirements for student participation in the district's interscholastic athletic program, including blah, 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 shall be the same for the participation in extracurricular and co-curricular activities. So I still walk away not knowing what the eligibility requirements are, unless I go check what the extracurricular and co-curricular activities are. And I appreciate the need for consistency amongst the 3 different types of activities, but I would love to know exactly what the eligibility requirements are.
They're most firmly and formally established in the athletic realm. There is not necessarily consistency across all extracurricular and co-curricular spaces, although there's been a lot of debate and discussion about that. Should you have to maintain a 2.0 to go on the choir trip or to be in the marching band? So I would say there's discussion about that and a lot of advocacy for that. But there's certainly nothing more restrictive about participating in athletics than in other extracurricular and co-curricular programs, since this is the policy on athletic competition.
So again, I just don't, when I read that, I don't know what the requirements are, just that they are consistent with extracurricular and co-curricular. Can they be described succinctly?
I have a similar response in that, and I think that's locally, there's some local determination about what those are. I don't know that they're frozen and timeless. I think the idea here is to set up the stage so that if there was a parent or a student who had a concern that there was a really inconsistent application of criteria for eligibility, that they could be assured that that's something that wouldn't be a good practice for us and not supported by board policy.
Okay, so my goal is that we make these as user-friendly as possible, and as a board member, I'm not even sure what the eligibility requirements are here, just again, that they're consistent with the other kinds of activities. So I don't want, I get that this language comes from CSBA, but if it's just words on a page, because we have to have words on a page, it's not all that meaningful. So I just want to try to push a little bit to see if we can actually explain in a sentence or two what the eligibility requirements are for interscholastic athletic programs. Like, for example, the 2.0 is a great data point to have. If we're trying to find that, could that be found easily?
Can I interject here? I think there's layers of where policy and procedures are held for a school district. This is sort of the highest layer. It's board policy. It's what we set. I do agree that it points to CIF, because if CIF changes it, then we don't have to update it. I think what you're asking for is how do families understand
Right.
the athletic scene? And I feel like we have different documents and layers like that our ADs use, that our coaches use, that are not board policy per se, but like a handbook on student athletics. And so, I mean, I don't know where they are right off the top of my head, but I'm confident that we have those documents at the school layer, the ASB athletics AD layer, so that if parents had questions about eligibility, those we can control quickly, and we can set up those links. So that's sort of my perspective about, policy shouldn't change that much. If we bring in CIF, then when CIF changes it, we may not quickly update it in print here. So I understand your request is like, how do we make this more accessible?
Right.
And then also, I just want to add to that, in this particular policy, part of the requirements is that all families who are participating in an athletic program will get this information, like there's an athletic packet that they receive. And so this policy speaks to that, and I think the complementing AR, I'm not sure, Sean, but it speaks to that information that families do receive. So I'm certain that it would address the eligibility every year,
So perhaps that could be added, that every...
Well, the flyer and the communication, how it communicates to families is in this policy somewhere. I'd have to look it up. I don't know if you
So
can see
the
that,
AR does
right?
not specify the eligibility criteria, but that is somewhat mutable. I mean, we meet regularly, and we've had a lot of, I would just say, coherence building around philosophically what it means to participate in athletics versus extracurricular, co-curricular, other extracurricular and co-curricular activities. This board policy does also, though, bring in this layer of CIF governance, which is another regulatory body that we have to be in alignment with in the realm of athletics. The athletic packet has become a lot more coherent and consistent across the 3 high school sites in the last 2 to 3 years. They were very, very different. I mean, different in format, different in content. It was really problematic for the exact reasons that you or that I'm trying to kind of illuminate in responding to you. We would have parents kind of come with concerns and say, I'm not clear about what this, and then as we looked at what our practices at that time were, it was really easy to see why they weren't clear. But I think you would find now that the communication tools that are disseminated for anybody who is involved in these programs are very, very specific and clear, and very extensive, actually, multiple pages of very small font in some cases, because it includes all those safety pieces about concussions, sudden cardiac arrest, as well as eligibility.
Sure.
Very clear language on non-discrimination, very clear language, forbidding and making sure people are aware of the prohibition against pay to play, things like that. I mean, they're dense bodies of information, things that I would argue we wouldn't want at the level of board policy.
Okay, don't need to belabor this, but I think in general, this sentence doesn't have much meaning, and if it can be a somewhat more directive of where somebody could find the eligibility requirements, that would be helpful. I just want us not to, because I do know that these board policies are often sort of directed, okay, you have a question, here you go, and if we have this kind of insider language, that's, to me, a good policy isn't ambiguous, and that statement is not very clear. So if there's a way in which you can refer the reader to something more that I understand needs to be updated with CIF and all that, I'm not trying to challenge any of the realities of how often these eligibility requirements get changed, but again, this just doesn't tell us anything by saying that they're just consistent.
Well, perhaps that can be reviewed. What I was thinking is that I appreciate you bringing up these conversations and looking at the policies, because they can be challenging for parents, I'm sure, to see these overarching policies, and what does that mean, though, when it comes down to what do I do with my son tomorrow when I have to sign him up for such and such. But I guess maybe if there's a way to wordsmith that and make it more direct, and then perhaps we could put that, I guess, would you be comfortable having it put on the consent agenda?
Yeah, I mean, perhaps it's even deleted because you just, I mean, basically it's CIF eligibility requirements, which is the next piece.
Wait, delete.
It's just that it's not, I mean, I think one of the germane things here is this is a board policy and athletic competition, and you can see they do reference those other policies on participations in co-curricular and extracurricular. So it's not necessarily true that we want CIF establishing eligibility criteria for all co-curricular and extracurricular type activities. And yet this is one of the things that this board policy from the California School Board Association is trying to achieve, is a kind of alignment of CIF as a regulatory body with other laws and codes and things like that. So I think it's helpful to have that. It doesn't feel redundant to me to talk about the importance of having kind of comparability between eligibility between athletic activities and other co-curricular, extracurricular activities, and then also to call out CIF specifically as having a prescriptive role in determining eligibility. It feels very true to what the actual experience of governing these things on a high school is.
So what's the difference between extracurricular and co-curricular?
I've always interpreted that to mean things that have kind of a link to the academic program and things that are sort of have a school-sanctioned or school-sponsored basis, but are not necessarily connected to the academic program.
Both are those things.
So if I'm part of the econ challenge team through my econ class versus if I'm part of the direct relief club, and there's a staff sponsor through ASB, but we do activities, we meet at lunch because we're all students at the same school together.
Okay, it's just more general. It's similar to the way we use acronyms. I just want these policies to be as consumer-friendly and clear as possible, and that we fall out of the trap of just wordsmithing because CSBA hands down new words, that we actually think about, okay, if I'm a parent trying to figure this out, what does this mean? And to me, this doesn't mean much. So I'm making this as an example. I'm confident that our eligibility requirements are fine, but I just, in general, that's the lens by which I look at board policies.
And I really appreciate what you're saying. I think that you'll find, though, that for parents, the point of contact is going to be that conversation with the AD, that packet that's sent home as they sign up for a sport. The websites have all of that information readily available by clicking on athletics. They're not looking for this information in board policy on the Santa Barbara Unified website. I would say maybe 1% of the time they're doing that, but 99% of the time they're getting that information either actively or on a receiver end through their engagement with their school, its staff, and its programs, if that helps. I don't know if that helps.
No, that's great, but this is the only one that we see.
Correct, but just to help assure you that I think they are getting that very exhaustive information through those venues.
Okay. Ms. Parker? You could always add just an extra sentence at the end that says, for further information, parents or the public can go to a high school athletic department, something like that. I would like to bring up a line that's on page 2, Mr. Rouse. And that is, if you can scroll down a little bit past, I think, student eligibility, if we're on page 2. Pause there. So the new language, students shall not be charged or fee to participate in an athletic program, including but not limited to a fee to cover the cost of uniforms, locks, lockers, or athletic equipment. That's been the rule in California ever since this district actually got taken to court. I was just so struck by it because it's not just that it will be covered or it will be provided if somebody can't pay for it. It's they will not be charged. And for uniforms in particular, I am thinking about our secondary PE programs where, yes, there are workarounds and, yes, they will provide for students of need, but the PE uniforms are presented in a way that it makes it seem like you have to buy one. And I really feel like it's wrong. And so that's not part of 6145.2, that's 6145.7, but with this in mind, I would really like to look at 6145.7. I would like secondary to have a conversation about PE uniforms and whether or not we are presenting that program appropriately. And I would like to bring in language to 6145.7 that it follows the law and then changes the practice in this district. So that's something that I hope that we can get to. I think this language is great. I think it needs to be reflected in 6145.7.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and it does point to that other policy. I did check around with all secondary schools, and it's very clear to me that they feel like there's a very clear distinction as they communicate to families and students that what they're asking for with PE uniforms is a certain, usually color of shirt, color of shorts, and some options, could be leggings, could be shorts, they kind of give those kinds of options, and that they offer a purchase as a convenience. But I'm hearing you that that's not maybe how the message is received, so I think we need to kind of study that a little bit more, because as I poll them, they feel like that's really clearly communicated, and yet if that's not the message received, then we have to look more deeply into it.
As parents and former parents of secondary students, I would say that is not something that seemed like an option.
All right, so are we comfortable moving this to consent agenda? Yes? All right. Thank you. So we'll now move to G4, discussion of new course approvals. Ms. Carey.
Okay. So thank you for approving on the consent agenda those that came back to you this evening from our former meeting, and these are two new ones. They follow suit with the La Cuesta Alta Vista submissions previously, in that these the intention behind these requests for new course approvals is that they afford students additional elective offerings who are in the alternative and continuation high school setting. There's our G electives, and the platform for them is Odyssey Wear. So these are initiated by Dr. Simmons to help, as I said, proliferate the elective offerings for alternative ed students. I would say that law enforcement in particular is always an area of high interest for our students. I don't know if you noted the rationale there being to help sort of with career exploration and public health as well, but particularly law enforcement is of high interest.
Great, that's actually what I wanted to ask. So was that generated by the students as such, not just because they could do it online? And
I don't know the exact genesis, but I know that that's something that we often talk about, is the amount of interest in our students, especially those who have had any encounters with law enforcement sometimes about the system. You often hear about, interest in kind of exploring what it means to work for probation, what it means to work in social services, what it means to work in law enforcement. So, and I know that Dr. Simmons has commented that is true of her student population.
Mr.
Go ahead. I just wanted to echo what Ms. Carey was saying, because I know Santa Barbara City College Administration of Justice is actually one of the most popular majors. When students come in right off the bat, they come in not knowing a lot about law enforcement. They're like, I want to be a PO, I want to be this. And taking those classes really helps. So it's nice that we're going to have an extra stage on which or platform on which they can kind of learn about that. So they can, if they do end up going to Santa Barbara City College, they have a better idea of which pathway they want to go, and then they can take those classes as appropriate. So kudos.
Ms. Capps?
Yeah, I agree. I just love seeing the topics, both of them. It's really exciting to know that they'll be offered. My question is just how you sort of reconcile that with an online course. I'm sure there's a good answer, but just was curious how that would work, since the mentoring and sort of the exposure to these potential career paths would be a very valuable part. I'm sure you can incorporate that as well.
You mean as opposed to with a traditional modality?
Yes.
where you could, the same things that you might give students exposure to in a traditional classroom or through traditional means, you can still do, certainly in the Lacuesta setting, with the flexibility of design, with personalized learning and the PLT time, where there's a lot of flexibility to bring in community resources and to connect students with, not just as guest speakers, but even people who end up being, lots of times in the Lacuesta setting, mentors to and advisors of students with career exploration. So, good question.
All right, so, my goodness, moving on. Item H. Let's see, we need to return to consent agenda item E1. Ms. Sims Moten, I believe that was you.
I think my question was, My question was that someone was able to travel for $155 both to Vegas and then to Alabama. I was just trying to was that a typo? See, at the top, we had a Nike coach go to, looks like, or going to Las Vegas for $155, and then $155 for a previous one that was traveled. So I was just wondering, was that a typo?
So I think that happens when somebody is staying with people that they know or family. The one for Alabama, I know, is of particular interest. But when the registration is paid for or free, or a grant has been written, things like that, then the cost of the district might be meal reimbursement.
Okay, I just thought it was odd. I just was trying.
Yeah, it is odd.
Particularly out of state.
Yeah. It caught my eye for
We want to get on that.
similar
We want to get on
reasons,
that.
but mostly for the reasons in red text, but yes.
Okay, thank you. So I move approval of this item.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And it passes unanimously. So moving on to item I, coming events. Does anyone want to share about upcoming events? All righty then. And then future agenda items, item J. So,
Was that part of the public comment that they wanted to be on a future agenda item? I think it was one of the public comment speakers.
Adelante.
Okay. They wanted to be on the agenda to do a presentation, actually.
So we'll put that down, thank you. I also wanted to acknowledge that we had a few agenda items. I know it's that time of year where there's lots of challenges to get agenda items on, but I just wanted to bring it out again, since I did bring it out in September. Just the preschool TK presentation and special education programs, including kindergarten readiness data. And I know that Mr. Paredes Ulloa added a few others, so I just am going to repeat them. There's the South Coast Task Force on Youth Safety, as well as a presentation on vaping from the County Health Department, and a presentation by Just Communities Language Justice. So just wanted to put those back into the tickler so that we might think about those. Anyone else? And honestly, I'm not sure if this would be an agenda item, but I wanted to just bring out the idea of maybe for future conversation as a board to talk about maybe potentially having like coffee with a board member. So sort of bringing an opportunity for engagement with the public, maybe once a month, but have a rotation of board members to sort of interact depending on the public, just to bring an opportunity for more, instead of just coming to a meeting, but actually engaging and getting to know us. So anyway, I was wondering if we might want to talk about that or put it on the agenda, or how we might facilitate that.
I mean, have it be an official meeting that we call?
It wouldn't, I'm thinking of it kind of like how principals have coffee with the principal.
Yep.
And they do it like once a month, or they do it at certain times. And so the idea would be, it would be a certain maybe it would have to fluctuate, so to ensure that the public would have an opportunity to come, because everyone has different schedules. So it might be on a Friday afternoon, or, Wednesday afternoon, or noon on Friday, you know what I mean? It might rotate, but that's what I mean. It's more for us to discuss and consider. But the idea of just bringing us more connected with the community and opportunities to meet us, and not necessarily wait until there's an actual issue, but just, you know what I mean?
I don't think it needs to be an agenda item, though, because it's not formalized, we're not taking action at it. I think that that's just something that you could set up and say, hey, board members, this is the schedule that I'm looking at, anybody able to rotate in? I don't think that needs to happen up here.
Okay.
So I think we could.
Well, is anyone interested? Okay, good. All right, well then I'll run that by you, but I didn't know, I just wanted to sort of throw that out as something that, one other thing we might add on to our list, but with the idea of just really trying to connect more readily with our community. All right. Well, is there anything else?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, Ms. Capps.
Yeah, I just had flagged the potential timing of the study session to discuss.
Oh, yes.
All right, so on May 8th, we actually put out the invite to high school students to come to we called it the Student Voice Study Session. We did it last spring. We're running out of board meetings now, so May 8th is when we were going to plan it. I'd have to work it backwards from what I think closed session's going to be. Closed session looks normal, next board meeting, so an hour for that, 5:30. So student voice session, an hour at 4:30. But Ms. Capps wanted to talk about alternative dates for that, to move it off the board meeting date, because it's, it just backs it up. The next board meeting on the 22nd, we do have to schedule the SIPSA reviews with all our principals. That worked well last year, but it's a good chunk of time. So mindful of the board members' commitment of time, so we can look at another date for a student voice session. But we get past May 8th, we're starting to get into the end of the school year activities, especially for our high schools, because those are the students that we want to pull from. So open to requests from the board.
Yeah, just to state it here, it's a concern for all of us. I just believe that when we're here for 6+ hours on end, we're not as productive as we could be. And so to decouple the approach that a study session has to be prior to a board meeting, it could be on another day. But I didn't realize that the invitations have already gone out.
Well, students are pretty flexible. But we're also, I'm thinking May 8th, help me out, is that AP testing week? I believe it's the first week of AP testing. That's the problem. Our board meetings just don't, they just happen second and fourth. I mean, if we moved it before the AP testing week, that would probably help. But trying to get the logistics, that's next week. And we're actually trying to over-recruit this year because we invited 15 and we probably got 10 from each school, so we could try pushing it later, but we'd have to push out a calendar review for the 5 of you. So,
Ms. Parker? I'll just say that, AP testing, the AP testing window is just a bad time to have high school students, try to pull them off. So, I mean...
Okay. I'll just leave it as a general comment to be mindful of the longevity of when we're all here.
Well, and I'm really being specific that I think May 8th is a bad day.
Yeah.
So it is.
It
so
is
that's
testing.
When
yeah,
testing is.
it is AP testing.
I mean, we could not do it this spring, which that's a great time with kids. But we're all starting to feel the effects of we missed 2.5 weeks of instruction. So I think it might be good to let our seniors and juniors stay on campus and manage their AP testing weeks.
And I think, too, having that study session on campus would be also a nice approach.
That would be pretty cool.
That would be
If we could
cool.
ever go to a school and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this equipment's pretty mobile. You know, we're not live on TV, which helps. If that, because, we just take the equipment. I really like that. My 2 districts ago, we didn't have a boardroom, so we had to have our board meetings at the high schools, and it's just a different vibe when you're actually at a school.
I would be all for, some variance to our locations from time to time, and to involve students in that process, even better.
And I would also acknowledge, too, like we've been talking about, potential advisory committee of students to the board and other, in the task force and such. So to correlate that together would be really good, to see, have students that are participating and see if there's an interest level and perhaps getting involved in that relationship. So what I'm hearing you say is it doesn't sound like it's going to be possible because of the schedule with the AP, and also just, I don't know, if we can schedule something. I'm thinking about my calendar. I don't know about yours, but I mean, I would hate to not be able to interact with the students. So I guess, yeah.
Well, you've been through one spring. May is a really busy season, really from May 1 until graduation for our high schools. So how about I propose this, that we cancel the student study session this spring and release May 8th back so the kids can stay at school, and that we look at scheduling a board meeting at one of our high school campuses early fall, just to test the concept, and we'll attach a student conversation. Now, it would have to be just the students from that high school, but we could invite kids from all 4 high schools. They just come to one school. So we'll just pick a campus, and we'll host a board meeting in the fall and replicate it there.
Great.
Okay. All right. Good.
All right, that would be very authentic. All right, so anything else? That's enough, as Ms. Sims-Moten says. That's enough. All right, so our next board meeting will be Tuesday, May 8th, a regular board meeting, and if there's no objection, which I don't think there is, I'm going to adjourn the meeting.